It is the halfway point in the EFL Championship playoff semi-finals. The calm between the storms. You're going to let me have that as a completely misused cliche. And it was a very, very rare, nigh on unprecedented double away win in the first legs. Does that mean it's pretty much over already? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. By way of a public service, I'll play the klaxons and the sirens in that Stephen Fry show when someone gives a really obvious cliched answer. It's only half time. There's a long way to go. Anything can happen. Yes, all those things are true and very low information. And let's have a bit more detail in the debate. Get it going down there in the comments. Your thoughts on where these playoff semi-finals stand after, as I say, pretty unprecedented double away win. 2008 is the last time that happened. 16 competitions. It was Palace 1, Bristol City 2, and Watford 0. Again, Bristol City involved in both of these, actually. Watford 0, Hull 2. And, just to drill into it really quickly, the reason it's so unprecedented, I guess, is the supposed advantage in the playoffs is given to third and fourth place, i.e. they get to play at home second, but their more difficult game is then first. So it's very rare that they both win the more difficult game, hammer home their advantage now ahead of the second game. Does that put an unassailable position on Coventry and Bristol City going away to the higher ranked teams? Not on an even playing field with a deficit to come back from. And in terms of coming back from deficits, as you'd imagine, history does not read well for teams in 5th and 6th that lose at home first. I've had a look. The last 10, which takes us back to 2010, we'll have a little guess. And it's a game that we bring up quite often. Well, I've given away the answer there. How many of those 10 actually overturned if you're in 5th and 6th and you lose the home game first? It is only one team in the last 10. It's that Darby versus Leeds one in 2019. Actually managed to get themselves to Wembley after losing the first game. It is highly unlikely, according to history, that these deficits will be overturned. But let me give you one stat that does say anything can happen. You have to go back to Brentford in 2015. They are the last team to enter the playoffs and do played 2, lost 2. So normally teams in the playoffs don't lose both games. That means the past 36 teams have at least gotten a draw. I know that wouldn't do anything, but it tends to be that we don't get double defeats, even though we've got the double away win there. Let me know your thoughts. Let's drill into these a little bit. So Thursday night, wasn't it? Bristol City 0, Sheffield United 3. And I watched Chris Wilder's press conference yesterday, on Saturday, ahead of leg 2. And he spoke about avoiding a single action that would severely influence the game. And in tournament football, that can happen. And that's what happened on Thursday night. And that action was obviously Rob Dickie, well, not tackling Kiefer Moore, because the action he wanted to avoid was putting his arms around Kiefer Moore just before half-time. If he hadn't have done that, even if he'd fouled Kiefer Moore after that, he would have got away on the double jeopardy with a genuine attempt to play the ball. Obviously, the second he puts his arms around the Sheffield United striker, who then goes down, you know that that's not going to be deemed a genuine attempt to play the ball. The red card comes out. Yes, we got lots of debate on the watch along about it ruining the game. Yeah, you're probably right. It does ruin the game, but them's the breaks. And with the double jeopardy law, they have done something to try and avoid this massive clanging seismic moment in the game where one team is not only a goal back, but then reduced to 10 men. And if that happens early in a 180-minute tie, i.e. a quarter of the way through at half-time in the first leg, it is transformational. And that's the deal, and that's what happened. And Sheffield United did a very good job. Then Harrison Burrows got the goal. There was kind of, 15, 20 minutes back and forth in the second half before the triple sub by Chris Wilder and they really, really pushed home that advantage. And I guess if you were sat in that Sheffield United dressing room at half-time, there probably would have been some conversations saying, guys, we can win this tonight. If this goes well, the 10 against 11 in the second half with a 1-goal lead, can you make it a 2-goal lead? You're pretty much home and hosed. Go look at those stats that I just threw up at you about the last 10 teams, losing a home game and coming back. 9 of them failed. Not only did they make it a 2-goal deficit that Bristol City come back from, made it a 3-goal deficit as well, Brooks and O'Hare. And I don't know, it's a difficult conversation, isn't it? Because I know that Bristol City fans were so excited getting in the playoffs for the first time. I'm thinking, well, it must be that 2008 one that we mentioned, didn't we, in the first time in 17 years. And they'll go up there and they'll support their team, but those City fans are going to be going up knowing that it would take something absolutely astonishing. As I've said, the way the playoffs are set up, the bigger chance is at home at Ashton Gate, and especially in this matchup where Bristol City have skewed better at home. I know they did have a good performance at Bramall Lane, and they drew the game in a good performance. That's going to be nowhere near enough, because if they draw this game, they lose the tie by 3 goals. They've got to win the tie by 3 goals to even take us to extra time and penalties. Got to win it by 4 goals. And quick reminder, I know it's tournament football and the regular season is just the form guide. It's just extra information. But on pitch, 92 points, plays 68. That tells us over the season Sheffield United have been a much better team than Bristol City. And do we ever get 4-goal away wins, not even in league football, but in tournament football, against, underdogs, against sides that are big favourites? Just does not happen, does it? It really does not happen. So I'll be astonished if that one is turned over. I think with our friends over at Boyle Sports, who are going to be sponsoring the prediction show with Sam tomorrow, they're 66-1 to be promoted. So, and remember that obviously factors in that there would still be another game for Sheffield United, who I think are 4-6 on that one. But yeah, I guess Bristol City just approach the game, try and score the first goal and see where it takes them. But if you're Sheffield United, and again, I don't want to give away my predictions, but you've seen these games, they can often be a draw or even a narrow away win, because Sheffield United just want to get themselves into the final with a minimum of stress and injuries. Frankly, they just want to get themselves set, get to Wembley and get prepped for that game. So it's an interesting outlook for both teams, a fairly unique outlook that you wouldn't normally get. Everyone, Liam Manning will say it in his press conference, and he is highly process driven. I will do all the same things that we always do, but it's very different in tournament football 2-legger, especially a 3-goal deficit to come back from. Let me know your thoughts on Bristol City versus Sheffield United. That is our Monday night tie, so that's coming up tomorrow. We'll be here on the watch along as Sheffield United look to get the job done. We'll go on to Coventry versus Sunderland in just a second. Let me do a quick little plug, because I know I said it's the calm between the storms. We are actually still in playoff action today. I think we must have a League One and a League Two game today. Who would it be? Chesterfield and, oh God, I'm forgetting, Walsall and Charlton and Wickham today, which means we are all go on EFL Fantasy Playoffs. Look, you've missed the deadline for the first leg games, but the great thing about EFL Fantasy Playoffs is it resets, so you can come and join us for the second legs. You're obviously going to need to do that on Monday. We'll put the link in the description. Click on that, and we've got a link to join the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel League. And look, I'm not great at fantasy teams, but I can tell you I captained Charlie Kelman of Leyton Orient, who scored twice in, the only player to do it, in fact, in the playoff semi-final so far. Playoff semi-final, first leg in League One for Orient against Stockport yesterday. So I've got plenty of points for that. Few players still to go. Go and get involved. And as I say, join the party in the second leg, because there are weekly prizes, the big prizes though, look at that. Hospitality tickets for the opening day in the EFL next season. 1 year. Now TV subscription, home and away shirt for your club. Right, second leg. I mean, this one is less over already than the other one. It was Coventry 1, Sunderland 2. It's still a very, very big advantage. You know, you just got to kind of think of it as, I mean, I know it's not a one-off game, but you can kind of park this. In theory, from this point onwards, you could view it as a one-off game in which Sunderland have a +1 goal advantage. And look, I know a lot of you will say in the comments, well, look, Coventry could score. They could get a throw in within 30 seconds, hurl it in the box, flick it on and score. And there you go. The tie's even. And, you know, we can talk about Sunderland's maybe playoff PTSD and will the Stadium of Light get very, very nervous. I think that was one thing in that Chris Wilder press conference that I referenced earlier that he picked up upon, that the Coventry fans and the Bristol City fans were brilliant in the first legs. Can Sheffield United and Sunderland's fans bring it in the second legs, especially given those teams have, as we say, had some playoff trauma before? But it's going to be hard for Coventry, isn't it? And we wondered what Sunderland are going to turn up in this one. They've had a weird end to the season where they knew for the longest time they were going to be in fourth place. And, you know, they lost a lot of games kind of prepping for the playoffs. We didn't know whether they were going to come out online and focused and game planned and ready, or they were going to come out a bit rusty. They came out online and focused. And it was one of those moments in that game where as soon as a goal goes in, the kind of light bulb goes off with the narrative of, oh, this is what's happening here. And we were getting a lot of people, it's annoying me actually, in the comments in the watch along, kind of misunderstanding the nature of tournament football. You know, oh, this is a bit of a flat game, this is a bit dull. And I'm like, have you ever seen a tournament game in your life, especially in the knockout phases of the World Cup? Many of them go to extra time. Many of them have one or fewer goals in the 90 minutes. And it's a real, if you're ready for it, it's a real brilliant game of chess and tactical nuance. And Régis Lebris bought a Sunderland side that had a real solid tournament football game plan. You wouldn't necessarily do that every week in the league, but they bought it. And the second that Wilson Isidore shot hits the net, you're kind of sitting there going, oh, wow, fair play. Because a lot of people are, you know, kind of thinking, oh, well, the limit of what Sunderland are doing here is, you know, getting into a 4-4-2 compact defensive shape, trying to stop Coventry winning and go into the second leg with it level. But as Régis Lebris said in his interviews after the game, he played two strikers that can both run, and this is a fact, isn't it, with Isidore and Mayenda, and he said can both manage big spaces. So the whole plan was they were going to concede possession to Coventry, which they did in massive numbers, like 70-75% during the game, wasn't it? But he knew that if there were large spaces and the ball turned over and Isidore is here and Mayenda is here, that if that ball can get transitioned quickly into those massive spaces ahead of the two strikers, the two options he had, that they could get a goal. And you've got to say, and if he's not being wise after the event, and I've no reason to believe he is, that game plan just worked an absolute charm, didn't it? Because look at both of the goals. Lefay plays it into a massive space. Isidore has got the legs, gets it out of his feet, drills it in. We do need to say the Coventry response was absolutely brilliant, wasn't it? And Sunderland, for once in the game, they defended in such a concentrated way. Maybe just the emotion and the chaos of that situation of just having conceded drew them back towards their goal. And Van Eyck, brilliant cross. Rudoni's been so good, hasn't he? Heads it in to make it 1-1. And then it happens again. And yes, you can argue it's a calamitous mistake from an excellent fullback at Coventry, Van Eyck. But we know that it was set up for them to have run-in strikers, and it was Mayenda the second time. Can he run in, quote, manage the space, as Régis Lebris said, Yes, he can. And I watched the Sunderland lads from the Sunderland Echo. They did a kind of post-match from the press box. And one of them made a really good point. Sorry, I don't know his name, but I'm going to steal it. Give him some credit in the comments if you know the Sunderland Echo journalist who said it. He said the touches from Mayenda were all perfect. Excuse me, I'm still so bloody ill. Father of a 3-year-old here, struggling on a Sunday morning to get my words out. But he is totally right. Keeper comes, draws him. Keeper doesn't want to get a red card even that late in the game. So he has to kind of half challenge him. Round he goes. Now, where's your composure? Can you roll it in the empty net? You're knackered. You've been running for 90 minutes. Yes, Mayenda could. Absolute killer goal. I think even if that said up there, 1-1, and we were going level, you'd almost say, oh, okay, Coventry really good at the CBS. We didn't know what Sunderland we were going to get. We do now because we just seen them play a playoff semi-final first leg for 90 minutes. You're then saying, that's really good for Sunderland. But the second goal, they have a cushion going in. And I guess the only question is now, do we get exactly the same game? I debated this with Gab Sutton after the game on the Sportsman podcast. You can check out that conversation elsewhere on YouTube. I don't know why I'm putting it up there. I tell you what I could do. I could link it. I'll do that. I'll link it at the end up there. That makes my point somewhat relevant up there. But do we think the second game's gonna be like that? I think it's probably gonna start like that, isn't it? If you're Sunderland, do you not just show up and you say, okay, the last thing you want to do is concede an early goal and, you know, the advantage goes, and maybe that trauma of Sunderland fans of the playoff history. I remember that game against Lincoln where I'm sure they lost the home game in that one, and the fans are kind of, oh no, here we go again. And that transmits around that massive stadium down to the players through the supporters, doesn't it? But I would just imagine you would do the same thing, wouldn't you? You would say to Coventry, okay, over to you. You couldn't beat this in the first leg. Not only that, you lost to this in the first leg. So we're going to start off by doing the same thing. And Régis Lebris seems, you know, really switched on. It is two switched on managers, Lebris and Lampard here. Studious fellas, both of them. I think you wouldn't blame him for saying, okay, what have you got? What are you going to do differently? Because unless you can come up with something different, or you can execute plan A in a way that's so good that you're going to have to make us change, then we're going to win the tie. Oh, and by the way, we've got a goal advantage. So be really fascinated to see how that one plays out. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. So, how do you see it going? Is it over already? Let me know your thoughts. And again, I don't need to hear it's only half time. There's a long way to go. Anything can happen. Yes, all of those things are objectively all true, but very low information. Why don't you let me know how you actually see, with some nuance and some detail, these second legs playing out? What can Liam Manning do? Could Chris Wilder fall over his advantage, overthinking it, not knowing quite how to prep with a 3-0 deficit? Let me know in the comments. This one's more interesting. What's Frank Lampard going to do? Is he going to double down on plan A? He's going to back a team that won a huge slew of games in a row in the middle of the season to go to Sunderland and win by at least a goal to take us to extra time, or by 2 goals to win the tie. What's Régis Lebris going to do? If it was a tactical masterclass and it worked a charm, can he do it again? Or is that an away game tactic that he's not going to use at the SOL on Tuesday night? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As I said, I'll link the conversation with Gab Sutton from the Coventry Sunderland game up there on the Sportsman channel. And I will be back streaming on both nights after the watch-alongs here on this channel after each playoff game. And I think I better stop talking there because I am gross ill. I'll go and have a rest and I'll go and blow my nose while I'll fill a tissue full of you-know-what while you fill the comments full of your insight in what's going to happen in the playoff semi-final second legs. Are they over already?